But first, our guest for today, ABC24's political analyst is Otis Sanford. He's here on my far right. Susan Edler-Thorpe is a political consultant with Thorpe Communications. And Reverend Keith Norman is a pastor of First Baptist Broad, former chairman of the NAACP, former chairman of the Democratic Party, so you know what you're talking about, too. we try to keep our guests well informed. All right. So let's first talk about the November 5th election. Otis, last week we were kind of hard on Gloria Johnson. We were. Said, why isn't she on the air? Why is she not debating? Why is she making only 2 campaign appearances a week on average? Right. She is out with a new ad, so in the interest of fairness, here it is.
What does Marsha Blackburn know about us? Tennesseans, grinding every day to get ahead. Not much. She's in D.C., taking $2 million from insurance and drug companies, voting against lowering our costs for things like insulin. I'm Gloria Johnson, a teacher, not a politician. I own a gun and have common sense. I fought those big companies and cut taxes for us because my home is Tennessee, not D.C., and that's why I approve this message.
All right, let's get your read on the ad, and has it improved the prospects from where we were last week?
I don't think it's improved the prospects, but it's a fairly decent ad. But I don't think she's going to get a lot of traction by saying that Marsha Blackburn is in D.C. all the time. I don't think voters are going to.
And so will you if you win.
Well,
right?
That's right. That's right. You're going to be in D.C. too. I just think it's really too little, too late. Hopefully, she saw our show last week and decided to kick up because she was campaigning here this past week. But it's still just such an uphill climb for her. I think what she should be doing in addition to this is hammering away on how, as we talked last week, how Marsha Blackburn is trying to rewrite history on that income tax protest that she led back in 1998 or 9, and when that was actually a mini riot, sort of similar to a lesser degree to January 6th. She ought to be talking about that. But either way, she just cannot win this election.
I also think there's some conversation to be had about how we're handling relief from the Hurricane Helene in East Tennessee. Susan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with Otis. I mean, I don't see how I could not. And, you know, I don't think she's going to get much traction either by saying, I own a gun. Well, so does everybody else in the state, practically. So, I mean, that's not a big deal anymore. I don't see how she can win against Marsha Blackburn when you think about how deeply red the eastern part of the state is, and they're going to vote for her. I think she's putting herself out there, and she's doing it for the party. I think she's doing a relatively good job, but the vote, running for office is about winning. The votes aren't there.
Reverend Norman.
I cannot confirm or deny if I own a gun or not. You said everybody does. I can only confirm it if you knock on my door after midnight. However, the resonating message right now at this level of government is we're tired of it. And I think she should have picked up on Kamala's note to really push that, because Marsha fits right in there really with Donald Trump, if you ask me. So if I would connect her to Donald Trump and I were to say to my voters, we are tired of this tone. We're tired of what we've been getting. And she's not been voting in the best interest of Tennessee. She's been voting against the things that really should be working well for us. That would be a better message rather than the sound bites and the snippets. You have to tell a complete story, and she got out late. She did not really spend a lot of time on the air, and so it's hard to connect the dots. I would have taken a different approach, but I'm glad she's taking an approach at this hour.
But attacking and tying her to Donald Trump, I mean, the people in East Tennessee and Northwest Tennessee are going to say, yeah, and we're glad about that.
But motivating Democrats is what she needs to do.
She
not necessarily she won't win those votes anyway,
right.
But she can motivate Democrats to come out, because she needs to introduce herself to Democrats. She knows a small group of Democrats in the middle part of the state because she was there in the legislature. She knows some from East Tennessee because obviously that's part of her turf. She has to introduce herself to the West Tennessee Democrats and motivate this large base to get out and vote for her.
Well, if she wanted to motivate Democrats, she could have dropped the line, I own a gun. So.
Yeah, that would have helped, but I still say ride the coattails of Kamala and take it on in on that note.
Yeah.
All right, very good. There are 3 referendums that Memphis voters will be deciding in this election. Listen, I'm searching, folks. There's just a lot going on in this particular election in Tennessee, Arkansas, or Mississippi. There's not a lot to talk about, but there is some buzz about the 6 referendums voters will be deciding. We've done a lot of conversation in this show and news stories about the 3 gun safety-related referendums, but there are 3 others that I think bear some conversation. The first first one has to do with amending the city charter to make a provision that there be a runoff. If one candidate in the mayor's race fails to get 50% of the vote, that there be a runoff between the top two candidates. Did anyone see any problems with this? Because we saw in the last mayoral election just how few votes it took for the eventual winner to be elected. What are your thoughts about mixing it up a little bit, and at least insisting that if somebody can't get a majority of the vote, we should have a runoff? Susan, I'll start on this one.
You know, I'm not in favor of it. I think whoever gets the most votes wins. I like that system. But, you know, if you have a runoff, then you're going to spend a lot of money having another election. And when you have a second election for the same office, people just generally don't turn out. Your numbers are going to be very low. If you're looking for greater numbers, then just have it, may the one who gets the most votes wins. But I don't think runoff will help matters any.
Gentlemen, either of you two take issue with that?
I take a little issue with it because we're already going to have a runoff for those district city council races that don't get over 50% anyway. So there's an election already in November. So remember the history now. The runoff was declared unconstitutional back in 1991 because it disenfranchised African American voters.
Right.
Now African American voters are the huge majority of the voters. And so that ruling by Judge Turner doesn't necessarily apply now. Since we already have a runoff, let's put a mayor's runoff on there too if a person doesn't get 50%.
Well, you can put a mayor's runoff on there too, but it's not going to draw more people to the polls.
Yeah.
No, it's not necessarily designed to draw more people to the polls, and I agree with Otis on this. You have to solve this problem. If you're not going to have a partisan election where you have one on one side and one on the other, you have to have some resolution when we have 5 people who all get between 17 and 25,000 votes, because you don't really have the momentum for people to get behind the one who did win, because there was only 25,000 votes that decided who the leader would be of a city of over 600,000 people, and that's just not a majority to get us to the point.
You like to have more of a mandate for that?
Yeah, we got to have a mandate for leadership.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second referendum that we want to talk about is, shall the City of Memphis charter be amended to authorize the City Council by ordinance to fix and determine the salaries of the mayor, the City Council, in other words, themselves, administration officer, and appointed directors and deputy directors? This one is a little bit more controversial, I would think. What are your thoughts, Ron?
I'd like to always vote on my own raise. I'd like to be in charge of that. I think they should be able to do it in terms of keeping the market and doing market studies as to what cities of this capacity are paying their mayor so that we can get a qualified leader. We do need a person who is paid in a fair scale to make sure we're getting the best person to run the city, and the deputy directors and those other city division officers. Whether they vote on their own salaries is a question, because I think it is supposed to be tied to what takes place in the county, and the scale needs to be balanced. So I don't see that that's going to be a very successful thing and very popular.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm thoroughly against this, and Susan and I talked about this before. I don't think that the City Council should be setting the division director's salaries. That's the mayor's job. They can approve it or not, but they work for those directors work for the mayor. So they don't need to be, their salaries don't need to be set.
But Susan did say it should be done on a market study. They should go out to
I'm not
any corporation periodically. Everybody does salary studies over the course of time to benchmark and make sure that they're paying their people fair wages.
Go ahead, Susan.
Well, you know, if ever there has been an ordinance that reflects the fox in the hen house, this is it.
This is it. Right.
Do not vote for this one, because the City Council already sets the mayor's salary, and before Paul Young came in, it went from $170,000, which Strickland was being paid, to $210 now. So they already have voted on that. And to slip in the City Council to vote on its own salary with no limits.
Right.
And the County Commission votes on its own salary, but it's for the next county.
Next
It's not self-serving, in other words.
It's not.
Right.
And you know, I'm not going to repeat what Otis said about the division directors, but especially the deputy directors. Well, I mean, why are they digging so deep, want to go that far into the administration? This is a separation of the executive branch and the legislative branch. They either like the deputy director and the salary, they vote it up, or they vote it down.
Right.
That's their choice. That's what they can do. But to allow the city council to set their own salaries is going to be one of the biggest mistakes the voters could make if they vote for this ordinance.
I think we're misreading the intent. I think we're talking about a mayor who goes to market and asks for fair compensation information, benchmarks it, brings it back to the council and allows them to vote on it across the board. And you look at it and you see, what do you pay people? We've talked on this show 1,000 times about getting qualified people with cutting edge, innovative thought and idea to lead our city. You're not going to get that paying kibbles and bits. You are going to have to pay people what they are worth.
The city council knows, every person who runs for the council knows what the salary is when they run, and they still run anyway, and most of them spend 3 and 4 times that amount just to get elected. But this isn't about intent. I can tell you, having covered the city council for many, many years, I can tell you the intent may be one thing, but what they're going to do is going to be something else. There is no doubt in my mind that if you allow the city council to set their own salaries, it won't be a matter of time before it's up to $50,000, $60,000 a year for a part-time job. They're now being paid about $30,000 a year for a part-time job, which some of them are screaming, oh, it's
Don't
for
forget
full-time.
health benefits.
Health benefits.
That's huge.
There are many full-time employees in the city who don't make $30,000 a year. And I think it is poorly thought out ordinance, it is poorly written, or maybe it was intended to be that way to slip the city council in there, but it's wrong.
What the city council does in the public light looks to be part-time. The hours that they spend studying and making sure that they are up to speed on the referendums and the things that they have to do is not a part-time job.
They have
I would
staff.
argue against
They have
that.
staff
They
that
do
do
have
that
staff, and they
study
do.
it and
But
hand
we
it to
have
them
to
when
get
they sit there.
qualified people and pay them what they need to pay.
I'm with Susan on this one.
That's okay.
I'm opposed.
We can
Well,
disagree.
it would be a damn boring show if you all agree. So, this is fine with me. Really quick, the last referendum I want to discuss, I don't think there will be much disagreement on this, and it's a direct result of the last mayoral campaign when we had several prominent candidates run who we learned had not lived in Memphis in the past couple of years. Yeah. Many weren't living in Memphis as they were running. So that's going to basically rectify. A candidate's going to have to be 18 years of age, and they have to be a bona fide resident of the city of Memphis for at least 2 years preceding the election. And they have the same stipulation for city council as well. Anyone disagree with that?
Absolutely.
No
not.
disagreement.
No
disagreement.
disagreement.
Okay, well, see, you guys kept it simple.
There you go.
Very good. All right.